Hey guys, my name is Lily, and today I'm going to talk about something that I feel very, very strongly about, and I'm going to tell you why. So I was taking my teacher certification exam, and one of the questions was about autism, and there were 4 choices. And one of the choices was, the question was, what is the cause of autism? And so one of the choices was poor diet and nutrition. And another question was, it is unknown at this time. So, as you might glean from this video, from the reason that I'm making this video, is that the correct answer was D, it is unknown at this time. That was the right answer on my test. And I feel strongly that the answer is B, poor diet and nutrition. But if I would have chosen that, I would have gotten the answer wrong on the test. And that kind of, sparked a fire in me. I made some Snapchat videos ranting about it, and I promised that I'd make this video, so here it is. So I actually read much of this book. I talk about this book in some of my other videos, and I love Dr. Natasha Campbell. I think she's great. So I watched a lecture about nutrition by her, and it was like in the lecture she predicted something very, very scary. She predicted that in a number of years, the amount of children who are going to have some form of autism is half of all children in the coming years are going to have some form of autism. And she said something very poignant, like, who's going to take care of these kids? The other half who have anxiety issues and depressive, who have other issues, what is going on here? So she talks in this book. She talks about her sons, one of her sons, who has made a full or pretty close to full recovery from autism, and also, I never met her sons, and I don't know how she knows, but I'm not skeptical about that claim that she saw her own son recover from autism, because she's talking personally, so I can't argue with that. And yeah, so there's no one size fits all. But anyway, so then there are some other bleak statistics. First of all, we have more doctors, nutritionists, chiropractors, healthcare professionals than we've ever had per capita. And yet we're the sickest we've ever been. In his documentary, The Human Longevity Project, Dr. Mark Hyman says that our generation, the generation younger than the people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, many of us won't live to make it to those ages. We're just not going to live. We're going to we're not going to make it to age 90. In that documentary, he interviewed people who are in their hundreds, and people aren't living that long anymore. It's just not happening. That generation is outliving us. So yeah, thanks to antibiotics and all these great healthcare advances, people have lived longer. But now, so the big pharma is 18% of we spend $3.2 trillion on healthcare. And this statistic is from Dr. Robert Lustig. I'm going to talk a little bit about children and their diseases. So basically, according to this Dr. Robert Lustig, children are developing diseases that alcoholics used to get. One of the diseases is fatty liver disease. I'm sorry, children should not be getting fatty liver disease. I don't care where they live. That just should not be happening. And prior to the 1980s, there were only, these were like type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease were diseases that only alcoholics used to get. Type 2 diabetes is now approaching the same incidence as type 1 diabetes. Like, think about that. Take a second to think about that. Like, it's, you're just, like, children are just as, like, there's as big of a risk of developing type 2 diabetes as there is to develop type 1 diabetes. And why is that? Think about what the kids eat on a regular basis. Sugar is the culprit. Yes, it sure is. In 1958, 1.58 million people had diabetes in 1958. 20 years later, 5.19 people were diagnosed with diabetes. 2015, 23.25 million people had diabetes. So there's the gross profit of the food industry is $657 billion, and we spend $3.2 trillion on healthcare. So, I mean, I want to just kind of reflect a bit on all these. I know I stated a lot of facts, and I'm big into that because, like, the people that, you know, us little guys are up against is, you know, these, you know, trained professionals who have all these certifications and have, you know, who are doctors in psychiatry and doctors and have, like, social, like, PsyDs, PhDs, and, you know, like, a lot, like, I know from my own experience, medication was very much pushed. Very much. Like, I was on medication for, like, 8 years, and I'm not saying, like, I'm not ruling out medication. I know I say this a lot, but I'm not ruling it out. Like, this is not what this video is about. It's not. I'm just looking at some certain trends in society. I'm not talking in an individual level. I'm not saying you should go off your medication now. No, that's not what I preach. I don't tell people what to do. I'm just looking at the facts. And the fact is that we're the sickest we've ever been. Every other day, you hear about someone else who has some sort of crazy disease. Children are getting diseases that alcoholics used to get, or that alcoholics do get. You know, I mean, if you look at the TV or in a magazine, you watch some late night TV, you watch like a show on E or something, and you're bombarded with all these crazy images. Then suddenly, you know, you see an ad for some new antidepressant. That is a fact. That is what I experience. Like, you don't take a second to step back and think, you know, why are these trends so prevalent? Like, why did this happen and how did this happen? And it's just, like, you don't think to grow your own food. Like, you don't think to change something, like to get a water filter or something like that. I mean, there's so much to say that I don't even know where to start, and it's really, like, sad that I feel like I feel like there's, you know, I feel like I'm in quicksand. I feel like there's so much wrong, and, like, it's just coming at me so quickly, and in the meantime, people are telling me, don't you see that you need help? And yes, I need help, but society needs help. Like, I mean, we all need help, and in the meantime, like, I'm just told, like, just take more medication, just take more, just more and more, and it's not that I'm saying to totally stop, but I'm saying that you need to look at the facts before you jump to a conclusion that like, it's unknown at this time. First of all, there have been peer-reviewed studies by certain people. Dr. Hyla-Cass, big name in functional medicine. Check her out. She's great. Dr. Mark Hyman, also a huge name. And people will tell you from experience. Like, you could see these people who have been suffering for years from depression, and they increased the amount of B vitamins in their diet and removed gluten. And these are practical, real steps that address the root cause of the inflammation in your system and ultimately heal you. I mean, like, Natasha Campbell talks about all the time how many of these kids with autism, the doctors don't think to ask the parents, what are you feeding your child? And a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, he eats pancakes and donuts and corn pops and corn chips and tons of refined sugar and tons of refined flour, and he gets almost no fiber, and when he does go to the bathroom, it's like very, very painful. Big shocker there. And it's like, oh my goodness, like they have she talks about like what's in the stomach. She makes like really detailed. I'm gonna try to see if I can find it, because some of these drawings are great. Here, like this is the villus in the stomach. Like basically these guys aid in digestion in your stomach, and they're supposed to constantly die off. And like these here, this is what a healthy villus, a healthy cell in your stomach should look like. And this is when people are sick, which many people are, and their gut flora is off. That's what it really looks like. So, like, yeah, these are endocrites, they're cells. Who would have thought that I'd be such a science person? I was always horrible at science, but now that I'm becoming more aware of these things, like, I'm taking a huge interest in science. Like, I mean, I don't love science as much as I love other things, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's things that's happening to my body and my brain. I mean, like, you know, I have a little bit about myself. I have had ADHD. I think, so my learning issues were due to, you know, it was probably either ADD or ADHD. I think it's ADHD. For a long time I thought it was ADD, but I always struggled with math concepts and multi-step problems. And yes, it was incredibly hard for me to learn things my whole life. My whole entire life. It was very hard for me to learn. And yes, I had an eating disorder in high school and in my early 20s. And oh, Dr. Natasha Campbell has a whole chapter on eating disorders. Like, here, I'm going to show you. It is, I mean, this book, honestly, made me realize so many things. Eating disorders, page 231. Gonna actually try to read you a quote, and bear with me here. Some statistics: 90% of eating disorder sufferers are girls between ages of 12 and 25. Mine started around that age. I mean, I probably was around 12 when I started to show eating disorder behaviors. 1% of the population is thought to suffer from some form of eating disorder. Many cases are undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. So she quotes, "There is no doubt that psychological factors play a role in developing eating disorders. However, the official position is that it's all in the mind, and that all you have to do is re-educate the person to eat without any regard to what the person is given to eat is probably the main reason for relapsing. To understand the whole picture, then she cites a case of this girl, Hannah, who basically in her eating disorder unit was fed, you know, I mean, in a way I'm very thankful that I didn't go to an eating disorders unit, because they would have fed me all this refined flour. I've seen documentaries, and like they give the girls pizza. Like, yeah, I know pizza's a huge trigger food, but like it's not something that's going to nourish you in the way that you need to be nourished. In no way, shape, or form. Like, I mean, and by the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do. But first I want to rant a little bit about, like, yeah, of course the pizza food is triggering, of course, and you want to get, obviously, the idea that, oh, pizza's not bad, and you're 90 pounds and you need to eat it. Obviously, but before you get there, or even if you ever get there, because pizza's really unhealthy, try to, like, think, like, how can you heal? Like, how can you heal in here and in here before you just jump into this inflammatory food? Like in a way, I feel for these people who have gone to these units, because it's like, wow, you're really up against a massive storm, and many people just don't know about like how they can heal themselves in a true, you know, really real way, in a substantial way. And that's what I'm all about these days. Even though I need a lot of help, like I get a lot of support. I really, you know, anyway, so So, oh yeah, so the things, so Dr. Natasha Campbell is very pro animal fats, and I know a lot of you are vegan, but she's very, very pro feeding your children the right kind of animal fats, grass-fed, hormone-free, because any other type of meat is totally inflammatory. Eggs should be cage-free and, you know, organic, like, obviously, like, she's very pro-organic. And also, this is another amazing book, The Anti-Anxiety Food Solution. I have suffered from anxiety for so many years. Oh my gosh, like my anxiety has just been through the roof. And so yeah, and I had, like, when I was struggling with all these issues, I was eating tons of carbs. I was vegetarian for a while, and I was totally overeating. I was on medication. Like, I ballooned to like a big size, and I mean, I wasn't obese. I mean, actually, according to the BMI scale, I was obese, which is a little nuts to think about, but that's the reality. So this author, Trudy Scott, I read parts of it. I didn't read, I got up to page 20. But she talks about how she was vegetarian and she thought about animals and stuff like that, and she was told that, you know, she understands these issues, but animal fats are just very necessary for the brain. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the truth. And so Dr. Natasha Campbell talks about bone broth and how healthy it was. Like, back in the day, like, people would eat it all the time, and like, you go to the butcher, you ask like for the real fatty parts, and like put it in the stew and like make it really healthy. I have yet to try this, but she talks about how great it is. Gluten-free. Try the gluten-free thing. Try gluten-free. I know it's difficult. I mean, I've been trying to stay away from gluten. I have had some bad days, but I've had some really good days. I've had some days where, like, I'm just thriving and the ideas are flying and I'm doing and creating, and like I've had some great days, and I've been taught to think like, oh, what did I eat today, and you know, and yeah, it works. And I suggest trying to keep a journal, because I've had some bad days too, and it's like, oh my gosh, I ate all this junk. Like, I mean, put two and two together. Anyway, so yeah, I'm sorry all you vegans. Like, I know I love animals too. I really do. I love animals. It's just like, and by the way, I'm not pro like all the way that animals are treated, like the chickens and these who like they cut off their beaks and stuff like that, just horrendous things, and torturing animals like to live like I mean, ideally I'd have a farm. Yeah, I would love to live on a farm. I talk about being on a farm and hold on, sorry. At least I know the mail's getting delivered today. So yeah, this was a long video, and I know it's not. It's just like I said. Like, I feel like I'm up against such a huge storm, and thank God I have people around me who are really supportive, and I'm blessed in a way. I'm blessed in many ways in my life to have, you know, when I have like a bad moment or a bad time, like I can just call certain people and they'll just be there for me. And it's like I don't have like a massive group of friends, but it's like I do have those one or two people who, like, if I'm having a really shitty day, like I can call and, you know, they'll just talk me out of it and be there for me and support me, and like it's so helpful. And like I am glad that, like, you know, I'm getting help, and like it's okay to ask for help, and you're not weak because you need help. And like I suggest that you know, you just kind of like take maybe like a moment to think about like what you're putting in your body, because there's no doubt that what goes in here, it reaches here and eventually affects what's happening in here. So there's a lot of evidence to that, and anyone who tells you otherwise, you can just, you know, try to respectfully disagree. I mean, a lot of times the people who really agree with you are healthcare professionals. I'm not saying argue with them, but I'm just saying that, you know, be aware that like you could even take simple